For now, let's hear from the IFC. We're joined by the Senior Country Manager. Mr. Kyle Kelhofer is a Senior Country Manager for Benin, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Togo. He was previously IFC head in Ghana and brings almost 30 years of global development experience to his new role supporting private sector growth, job creation, and recovery from COVID-19 in West Africa, and a wealth of experience from his recent duty tour of Asia. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kyle Kelhofer.
His Excellency, former President John Mahama, government officials, members of the diplomatic corps, business partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. As the MC mentioned, my name is Kyle Kelhofer. I'm the Senior Manager for what we call the Ghana cluster, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Guinea. And to be clear, I represent the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, not the IMF. Over the last few months, I've had many questions about the program and our support in the government. No. IFC is, for those you may be aware, we're the largest global development institution focused on the private sector and taking private sector risk, commercial risk, business risk. And with our sister institutions, the World Bank, MIGA and ICSID, together we constitute the World Bank Group. We IFC have operations over in 100 countries and invest over $30 billion a year globally in emerging markets, as well as our technical assistance with firms, with business communities, and with the government to create a more enabling environment for business around the world. Over the past decade or so, IFC's brought approximately $4 billion into Ghana. That's investment into private businesses in Ghana, agribusiness, finance, tourism, infrastructure, manufacturing, and I could go on, as well as supporting these businesses as they develop and the government to help both enable those business and to attract more businesses. So with that, I've been asked here to talk on new paths for growth and prosperity. And with that, I'll start with where we are today, some ways forward, and some things that will help us get there. First, on where we are. I think, as many of us are, we're all very much relieved that we're here on the other side of an IMF board approval. Reduced tension, increased stability for all going forward. But within this, we still have challenges. But within these challenges, I'd like to think now, post-IMF, there are increased opportunities. An increased opportunity for Ghana and Ghanaian businesses with this increased stability, resilience, competitiveness, and economic independence. Some may see Ghana as under an IMF program the next 3 years as a challenge to sovereignty and independence. But many of us, and maybe I've seen too many IMF programs around the world, we see these as a contribution to Ghana's resilience by putting some economic guardrails on the economy. While you, the business leaders and the government, will be leading this economy forward, now we're on a more stable path and a road that we need to stay on. And importantly, Ghana may be one of the first frontier markets to seek IMF support, but we don't think it's going to be the last, and for many reasons, whether it's global disruptions post-COVID or the Ukraine conflict or supply disruptions or record growth in interest rates. Unfortunately, there will be more countries in this predicament. So maybe it's a good thing that Ghana gets its house in order first. The reality, though, in the next few years, government resources will be constrained, which means the job of driving the growth of the Ghanaian economy will fall on the business sector, those here in this room today, both domestic and international. And quite frankly, in most countries of the world, this is usually a good thing. Hence, it's important for you here in the room to identify these challenges and financing and what is managed to create more and better jobs for Ghana. And importantly, as we have issues and constraints and bottlenecks, it's absolutely vital for your voices to be heard. So that kind of brings us to where we are today, but what I'd really like to get to is some pathways forward. As we all know, a key principle of investing is diversification. And a key aspect of resilience, of country resilience, is increased value addition and job creation onshore. Principle of higher stability. Recognize many industries are here in the room, but I'd like to focus on two, where we see potentially real comparative advantage in the current Ghanaian context and the current global context. And that's agribusiness and manufacturing, where there are compelling immediate opportunities to strengthen, given Ghana's increased resilience, and create more and better and more sustainable jobs. and export revenues and reduced imports for economic stability. Now, context is important because I know many of us here in the room, we've been talking about manufacturing and agribusiness for 20, 30, 40 years. At least when I first started coming here in 1998, I know we were talking a lot about this. But it's a different world today. And more importantly, it's a different world outside of Ghana than in addition to in here in Ghana. Today, much of the world's manufacturing comes from Asia, and much of the agricultural projects. And countries like Vietnam and Cambodia, once very, very poor countries, suffering from devastating wars of independence and famines, have in the last 25, 30 years, done very well with manufacturing-led and agricultural-led economies. 6 to 8% growth, 25 years straight pre-COVID. 6 to 8% growth. Okay. As a result, they've done very well, and their people are healthier and happier and having better jobs, and their countries are stable. But East and Southeast Asia are facing some transitions that may benefit the rest of the world, including those of us here today in Ghana. First, it's very simple, demographics. There are fewer people, and fewer people available for jobs. Second, we're seeing an increased global demand for goods and an increased exodus from China because China can only do so much. And the Vietnams and the Cambodias and the Bangladeshis can only take so much. Third, there are simply land and environmental limitations. There's only so many rice paddies in Vietnam. There are only so many fish farms. And fourth, and importantly, comparative labor costs. Labor in Asia has gotten very expensive, particularly compared to Africa. Now, we've seen companies move to East Africa with mixed experiences, trying to bring better jobs, better and well-paying jobs. That brings us to Ghana. And I know from IFC, we're here to seek opportunity and seek investment opportunities, but the reality is Ghana is comparatively more stable, politically, safety-wise. The currency is convertible, and with an IMF program, we now have guardrails. We have an extremely educated population. We actually have comparatively better power supply. We have one of the region's best deep water ports. In short, it's a frontier market with all on paper what is needed to be a dynamo for business. And this means expanding potentially Ghana's business. Not just cocoa, not just cassava, but industrial cassava, rice, poultry, fish farms. And this is already happening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few miles from here, the DTRT factory in Tudu has over 6,000 young people, primarily women, cutting, sewing, trimming, ironing, folding, training others, and above all, exporting shirts and jackets and apparel to the US, to Walmart and other suppliers. And with productivity measures already on par with Bangladesh. You probably can't find their work here in Ghana, but you can definitely find it over in the US. We IFC were delighted to finance and support DTRT, as we have 3 other economic manufacturers for primarily export market here in Ghana over the last 12 months. So it's happening. Despite the disruptions of the economy of the last year, investors are coming here to create export industries. Now, what would help these pathways? First and foremost, and this is one of the key topics, and my previous speaker spoke on this, environmental, social, and governance. This is not a nice to have anymore, okay? And this is not even just a need to have, but it's a want to have. You are going to service the international markets, have international partners and international market access. These standards are vital. If you want to attract more competitive, lower cost financing, these standards are vital. But more importantly, we at IFC have performed studies on this. And in fact, in the private equity business, investee companies with gender parity on the boards perform better for their shareholders. In listed public markets, companies with better environmental and social practices perform better for their investors. So it's actually win-win for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, what will help us get there? Business dialogues, like here today. Business is difficult everywhere in the world. Everybody knows that, particularly economists in Washington and London and Paris. But it's only those businesses here in this room, here in this country, know the real constraints to business and job creation. And those voices need to be heard, and those voices need to be supported. And it's important to stay constructive. While taxes may not be reduced, Maybe they can be incentivized to promote exports or to promote job creation. Market barriers. Why is the EU market for exports from Ghana more difficult compared to its peers in Vietnam and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh? I'm still trying to understand that. Why do we have to pay higher import taxes from Ghana into Europe compared to our Asian peers? Or land, vital for investors, land access. And the ability to use that for collateral for financing remains a fundamental bottleneck here. Why can't we move forward on this? So with that, during these next 3 years of the economy under guardrails, we look forward to the business community articulating and voicing these concerns and being heard, because these concerns need to be addressed as you in the room help see through this new growth. And with that, I look forward to the panel discussion and further speakers today. Thank you again for joining today. Thank you.